I see his hand sticking out of the rubble, and I just grab him by the hand and I pull him out. And I'm in pants, no shirt, no shoes, no socks.
Long before he enlisted in the Army, Samuel Graves developed a work ethic that separated him from his peers. He approached whatever job he was doing with exceeding his own expectations as the only goal. It's the kind of attitude that people who count on you learn to appreciate pretty quickly. Throughout his military career, he benefited from equal parts hard work and dumb luck, but at the end of the day, the difference between chance and fate isn't that significant. Because once you step onto the battlefield, close calls are a given. They're the known unknowns.
I raised up to fire at him. I was thinking, this is a car bomb coming right at me. And that's exactly what it was.
What is true bravery? What makes a hero a hero? Tested by the worries of what's happening at home, thousands of miles away, and the reality of what you're facing here and now. When your life is in danger every second, and it's either kill or be killed. From Wondery and Incongruity Media, this is Anthony Russo, and this is War. Hi, this is Anthony from This Is War, and we've got some really exciting news. You can now listen to new episodes of This Is War completely ad-free, exclusively on Stitcher Premium. In addition to our ad-free shows, you also can listen to tons of other Wondery shows like Sword and Scale or American History Tellers. Plus, with Stitcher Premium, you get access to hundreds of hours of original content, audio documentaries, and exclusive bonus episodes from some of your other favorite podcasts. If you're one of those people who likes to skip over ads anyway, Stitcher Premium is probably a great solution. You don't have to hover with your finger over the 30-second or 15-second button. You can just listen through the whole show uninterrupted. Sign up now for a free month of Stitcher Premium by going to stitcherpremium.com/Wondery and using the promo code WONDERY. Then, once you've signed up, just download the Stitcher app for iOS or Android and start listening. That's stitcherpremium.com/Wondery, and the promo code is Wondery, WONDERY. Samuel Graves didn't exactly join the Army because he was out of options, but he was running out of direction. He'd spent 3 years at Troy University in Alabama running track, but college just wasn't his thing. He ran up some debt and knew he needed a life reset, which was something the Army offered. After that, the decision was easy. His father had been in the Army, and the signing bonus plus the kind of focus that comes with becoming an infantryman was all he needed to sign up for 4 years in the Army.
It was my 27th birthday, and we were going to be meeting the recruiter later that day, so I was getting up in the morning, putting a pot of coffee on. Parents had a little TV in the kitchen I turned on, and just in time to see the second plane hit. I didn't even think about it. This is going to cause a war. You know, we didn't really know what it was at the time, but still got ready, went down to the recruiting station, and me and my brother went down there, and the recruiter was driving us up to Montgomery, Alabama, where the MEP station was, where we were going to take our final oath, and they were going to ship us to Fort Benning, where infantry basic training is. It was going just like that, and we got about halfway to Montgomery, and the recruiter got a call saying all the bases were locked down. So we turned around and went home, and they said, we'll let you know, when it opens back up and when we get back to normal business or whatever. So went home, had dinner with some friends, and my buddy Dylan, he's like, you still feel good about this decision? They were going to pay me, and they were going to do all this when there was no war. I can't really go back on my word just because, things change.
Basic training's not too difficult for a 27-year-old former athlete who's been working at physically demanding jobs for nearly a decade. The waiting was a problem, though. It isn't that Graves was in any rush to get to the war, though he would do his job when the time came. It was more that, since it was the end of summer, there was a bottleneck at in-processing. Add to that the effect of the September 11th attacks on the Army's superstructure, and the bottleneck only got worse. The 14-week process continually was pushed back so that, although he arrived in September, Graves didn't graduate basic training until February 2002. He deployed to Germany, then Kosovo, where the U.S. peacekeeping mission was well established. By the time he got to Iraq in February 2004, his unit was part of a well-oiled machine, primed for the fight.
So we went to forward operating base called Brassfield Mora to do missions. We had to travel in every day. And later on, when things got pretty bad, we ended up moving right into the city so that we were right there. You figured out pretty quick what the bad areas were and when stuff was about to go down, because the streets would be pretty busy. We'd be going through, and then all of a sudden everybody just starts to disappear, and you just knew it was about to happen. We were on a road called Heat. It was where we went when we were looking for a fight, basically. Streets start to clear out. We're kind of wondering what's going on because, this is our first contact. We're just working our way down the road. On the other side of the road from where I was at, a grenade got thrown from over a fence or something and exploded next to one of our guys a little ways off. And we got lucky, he just took some concussion from it. And he continued on the mission. We moved a little further down the street. We started taking fire and, we didn't know how many we were dealing with. So without knowing that really, we just kind of peeled back. We didn't advance on it. The soldiers, the people we were fighting didn't wear uniforms, so it was always hard to tell what was going on. We went 40 days in a row that we got into a firefight.
Samarra was a Sunni city, loyal to Saddam and an insurgent hotbed. These people were highly motivated to get the Americans out. Brassfield Mora was on the outskirts, but Graves' squad was in the city. They were supporting a special forces contingent that had established a base in the city's center. During those highly kinetic weeks, they would block off a street with Bradleys while they patrolled just to prevent vehicle-borne IED attacks in the middle of the day. Patrolling every day was a critical part of the mission because sometimes a patrol is a patrol, and sometimes it's a feint that conceals a bigger mission, like a raid on an alleged weapons cache.
Well, we went into this house and we searched it, and attached to that house was an empty house. We found a big RPGs and a bunch of weapons and stuff. So we started interrogating or questioning the house next door or that was attached to it. And you find stuff, then you can't prove that it's anybody's stuff. That's the way it was. How do you know if it was theirs or not? It probably was, but there was no way for us to prove it. We had an EOD unit. He was crazy. I remember we called him to come in and blow up the ordnance. And I remember him muttering, "I'm going to blow every damn window in this neighborhood." And he hooked a ton of C4 up to that thing, and we blew it in place. I don't know if we blew all the windows. I just remember him saying that.
Theirs was a multi-part mission, an attempt at winning hearts and minds while also working to stamp out the insurgency, which made it a doubly dangerous assignment. The insurgents didn't wear uniforms except when they were infiltrating the Iraqi police, so soldiers never really knew whether they could trust the people they were working with. Moreover, in the middle of the city that was essentially at war with itself, the U.S. was trying to help make a plan to rebuild the city's infrastructure. Unfortunately, there was no way for them to be all things to all people.
We got hit by a ton of car bombs, truck bombs, whatever, vehicle-borne IEDs. We were on a mission. We had blocked off this one street. We were talking with a local leader about doing some work on a school. So my company commander was in, and I had gone in with him with my squad to take a look at this school. And we had the Bradleys blocking off areas and Constantino wire out. But there was a wall around the school. So one of the Bradleys on the east end, it was pulled up there and so if somebody was coming behind that wall, he wouldn't see it till the last minute. Well, I had been inside the school talking. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go check positions on the outside and just go check out the area and make sure everything's all right. So I remember me and Stutzman, we walked out. Right when we walked outside, this car bomb, it comes barreling around that corner, goes around the Bradley, but goes right through that Constantino wire. So it is literally heading right for me and Stutzman. I raised up to fire at him. I was thinking, this is a car bomb coming right at me. And that's exactly what it was. The Constantino wire wrapped around the inside of the tire, and it jerked the wheel to the right, and it ran into a house that was there, and then it blew up. It killed a couple of people in that house, including a child. Even though we were there trying to do something good by fixing up a school, and we were just coming into the area, we got, because this happened and these people died, it was our fault basically. And that's what we had to deal with a lot of times. We went into it with the best intentions as soldiers. We thought we were going in there to try and do, the right thing to try and make their life better. But, by the end, all we cared about was staying alive. What they thought by then was the last thing on our mind.
It was a weirdly escalating game of cat and mouse, with the soldiers working to discover insurgents and destroy their caches of weapons, and the insurgents trying to carry out attacks while moving or hiding their weapons. Both sides were dug in, and the city and its residents were caught in the middle. It's important to remember that Samarra was at the time much like Fallujah, but with fewer foreign fighters, and the Americans were tipping the balance of power from the Sunnis to the Shia with every successful raid. They also weren't making a lot of friends with the unsuccessful ones.
If we knew we were going in, knocking in doors on a mission, we would go in at night or whatever. A lot of these places had gates on the houses and stuff. So, as a team leader, I probably had to hop that gate to open it from the other side to let the other guys in. And then we would run to the door, line up on the door. As a team leader, I carried a shotgun that we would blow the doors in a lot of times with. At least early, that's what we did, until we found out that just kicking them in was a lot easier than blowing them in. And I blew the door in with a shotgun, and then we kicked it in after that. When we went in the door, there was a guy laying there. He had a pellet in his leg, but he's laying there with a screwdriver like he was waiting on us to come through the door. I think the door we went in was leading into the kitchen. Most of them had flat top roofs, and you could go up on the roof. So we would go in, and then we would search the whole house all the way up to the roof. We would bring everyone in to one room that was there, and we had interpreters that worked with us. Our lieutenant, or if the commander was there, or whoever, would begin the questioning and why we searched for whatever we were looking for. We're going into his house. I mean, I don't blame him for protecting it. So I don't think we found anything in there. So, I just shot a guy in the leg that probably wasn't doing anything, but that's what the intel was.
The constant fighting made the local government rethink the strategy, and they asked the Americans to keep to their compound and let locals take care of security. Whether this was just poor, short-sighted governance or an explicit attempt by the government to preserve the insurgency is debatable. In the coming years, the Shia would rise to dominate the Sunni minority, and Samarra would be plagued with sectarian violence. For his part, Graves was set to do whatever was asked of him. Part of it was his age. Having had real responsibility before entering the army, he knew that setting yourself to your work was easiest if you focused your pride less on your accomplishments and more on the job to be done. He also just wanted to be good at what he did, and he was going to get his chance to demonstrate it plenty of times in Iraq.
Right before dark, one night, we started taking fire. Mortars started coming in. RPGs, small arms fire, started coming in. So, we had trained through this with them while we were there. We had fighting positions on the rooftop. Everybody had assigned positions, and it was 2 9-man squads that had been, were from my unit, and then an 8-man SF team against 200. Now, we were in a very fortified compound. So my position was in the mortar pit. At that time, I was a team leader. I also went around to all the positions to check on all the guys. So I was moving a lot from position to position, from all the fortified positions, just to make sure they have ammo, that nobody's injured, that they're good, that they got water, they know their sectors of fire, and they're scanning. If somebody needs to be relieved, I can do that as well.
Even though he was a squad leader, Graves didn't have any more combat experience than the other guys in the squads there, and certainly not as much as the Special Forces guys. But he was older and, if not calmer, at least a little bit more focused on the job at hand. All through the night, he moved between firing positions, reminding the soldiers who were outmanned nearly 10-1 that they still were part of a well-trained, well-equipped brotherhood. And, just like they trained, if everyone stuck to their job and had enough nerve, they would get through the night just fine. And so they did.
So we had at least 5 or 6 fighting positions on the roof, and each one of them had some sort of heavy machine gun or bigger, or we had a couple of positions that had sniper rifles in them. We were talking to the outside, to the base outside, just saying, we probably need to get some more ammo in just in case something happens again. Me and another guy, Nick Sanders, he was the Bravo team leader. I was the Alpha team leader at the time. When we came off of 100% protection, which was what we were at when the battle was going on, we sent most of the guys to bed. There was a couple guys stayed up on positions, but we started breaking down and cleaning all the heavy guns because they get carbon buildup once you fire them a lot, and they were fired a lot. We were just coming on where we were going to try and get some sleep, and boom, it all pops off again. So most of them were coming from buildings that were off in the distance. It went on for 2 nights. So basically we fought them until almost daylight, and it kind of died down. And then the same time the next night, it started back up again.
With the exception of one guy who lost a piece of his ear to an RPG blast, there wasn't one American casualty on the base during those 2 days of fighting. Part of it can be chalked up to dumb luck, which was the insurgents' main tool when it came to mortaring. But another part of it came down to a well-chosen fortress expertly defended. Graves has a certain amount of pride in having directed much of that, keeping his guys alert and on task and rested and supplied as he moved from fire position to fire position, occasionally providing relief so all the positions were sharp. Keeping the enemy at a distance where chance was their primary ally wasn't an accident, but still, without the ability to go out every day patrolling, the SF base would be untenable. Within a month, the Army would extract to a National Guard base outside the city, where they would watch as the enemy began fortifying the city of Samara. Hiring can be pretty time-consuming. You post a job to several online boards only to get tons of the wrong resumes. Then you have to sort through all of those resumes just to find a few people with the right skills and experience. Those job sites that overwhelm you with the wrong resumes, they're not smart. That's why you should do the smart thing and go to ziprecruiter.com/thisiswar. Unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter finds quality candidates for you. Its powerful matching technology scans thousands of resumes to identify the people with the right skills, education, and experience. Then, it actively invites them to apply for your job so you get qualified candidates fast. It's no wonder that ZipRecruiter is rated #1 by employers in the U.S. This rating comes from hiring sites on Trustpilot with over 1,000 reviews. And right now, my listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ziprecruiter.com/thisiswar. If you love this show, show your support to it and ZipRecruiter by going to ziprecruiter.com/THISISWAR. That's ziprecruiter.com/thisiswar. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Graves received the Bronze Star for his performance during the attack on the Special Forces compound. He also was elevated to sergeant, partly stemming from that night, but also because of his work ethic. You see, the word was out that he could be counted on, and as they saw the political solution for Samara begin to come apart, it was critical that everyone be ready for anything. They hadn't been in the Iraq National Guard compound for long before the difficulties of sitting outside the city became unmistakable.
And once they pulled us out and there was no presence in the city, insurgents started setting up IEDs and mines and different traps for us for if we came back into the city. And we were training the Iraqi National Guard, and we also had sniper position basically set up on top of the building, overwatching the bridge to take out anybody trying to set up explosive devices on the bridge. Me and Nick Sanders, the other team leader, we were on watch that night on the sniper position, so we had a 50 cal machine gun and a 50 cal sniper rifle in the position. Some night sights that we could see onto the bridge with them, and we were bullshitting and talking, and every once in a while we'd look through the night vision and check out the bridge and just make sure nothing was going on. All of a sudden we started taking fire over our head. Tracer rounds started flying over our head, and we jump on the stuff, and Nick starts firing at where it was coming from, and he ended up shooting the guy, and he fell into the water and got caught in the dam. And they pulled him out of there the next morning, and it was an Iraqi policeman. We knew half of the policemen were insurgents. That same guys we were working with during the day was who we were fighting at night. The police came to our compound and kind of made a big deal the following morning, and we basically sent them on their way.
The disconnect between the Iraqi police, the Iraq National Guard, and the U.S. forces vacillated between comically irritating and outright dangerous. The Iraqi National Guard was notorious for disregarding fields of fire, so much so that during firefights it could be difficult to tell whether they were shooting at American forces on purpose or out of ignorance. Graves said the most fear he ever felt on the battlefield was when the National Guard was mixed in. Beyond that, there were problems with desertion and graft, but just as with their battlefield incompetence, the distance between dereliction of duty and abetting the enemy sometimes was a blur. This was one of the greatest frustrations for a lot of the U.S. military. It wasn't merely that the Iraqis ignored their training, it was the fact that the consequences could be so disastrous when they did.
The following day, so we were in this compound that was not set up how it should be. Like, normally we set up barriers where you can't like drive straight in. You got to go through like a maze to get in, you know, so you can't get like a running start at something and drive a car bomb in. There was just a piece of concertina wire across the gate, and it was the Iraqi National Guard guys were manning the gate. This Iraqi police truck shows up with the Iraqi policeman in it. They open up the gate for him. He hits the gas and he comes barreling in. And he runs into the building trying to go through the wall into where we were at, but it hits the wall and the tires just start spinning. Once he couldn't get into the building, he reached on to the dashboard and there was a couple of wires. He stuck the wires together and it blew 400 pounds of explosives. So it blew in both walls. So it blew in all the first room, blew in the second wall going into our room, and then the roof collapsed on top of us. I was sleeping. It felt like I was getting tackled by somebody, basically. There was 38 of us inside the building.
If the truck had made it through the wall, as the plan appears to have been, it likely would have killed all of the soldiers inside. Shouts of alarm rose up as the rest of the people at the base rushed to respond. But just as the recovery effort began, it was clear that a defensive one would be needed as well.
Where I was sleeping in the second room, I was right next to the wall. But right in front of my head was like a small refrigerator, like a 3/4 size refrigerator that had like water and stuff in it. So when it blew it in, that fridge like protected my head from the wall getting blown in and all this shrapnel. So it protected me once with it coming in. So I got knocked off of this cot with the wall blown in, but the fridge took a lot of the impact. And then the fridge fell on top of me, and when the roof caved in, it protected me again. It was a coordinated attack. So as soon as that blew, not even a couple of minutes later, they counted it at 38 mortars came flying in. RPGs started flying in. Small arms fire came firing in.
There are two aspects of training. One develops your muscle memory and keeps your approach solid, but there's another, maybe even more important aspect, the one that ties you to your responsibility. People who live up to this second one, like Graves, tend to rise in the leadership ranks. They don't ask what they need to do. They observe what needs to be done and then add it to what they know they already have to do. But to have this kind of sense be the first thought reaction when you wake up under a pile of rubble still is pretty impressive.
I was able to pull myself out. I didn't get knocked out. I'm basically the only one inside this building in the rubble that's conscious. And I knew that this guy, Mike Converse, was sleeping in the bunk right next to me. So, you know, it's like a dust cloud because it's like concrete debris, like in particles floating in the air. I see his hand sticking out of the rubble, and I just grab him by the hand and I pull him out. And I'm in pants, no shirt, no shoes, no socks. So I grab him, walk through the rubble, take them to the other side of the building, and people that were not in the building are starting to come over and help and fighting position. You know, we're trying to set up security because now mortars are starting to fly in. So we're, you know, not only are we going crazy because we just got hit by this bomb, but, you know, we're under attack. I told the guys to to guard the entrances and lay Converse down. And I go back into the building, and I remember I saw some shoes laying there, some boots, and I put on these boots, and they were both left foots. So I'm walking around with these huge boots that are not mine, that are both left feet. I see a weapon sticking out of the rubble. I sling the rifle, and I put it over my shoulder, and I started pulling guys out of there and setting up a casualty collection point. And other people are starting to help too. But I pulled like 6 guys out of there. Sergeant Whitty, who was my squad leader, he had like a piece of concrete with like rebar and stuff sticking out it on top of him. And I remember this guy Patrick was saying, I can't get it off of him. And I came over and I just pulled it off of him. Sergeant Whitty, great leader, great guy. He was little bitty. He was probably the easiest guy I carried out of there.
As the rest of the soldiers beat back the external assault, Graves continued returning to the building for others. Even though they were on their own base, they had to do the same kinds of immediate triage they would have to do on the battlefield. Save the wounded first, then worry about retrieving the dead. It's the kind of thing that seems obvious on the face of it, but it's a little harder in practice.
I remember me and a guy were trying to dig a guy out that was in the front part of the room. And I remember I cleared out around his head, and the top of his head looked fine. But when I touched his head, it was soft. It was like Jell-O. The guy, we're like trying to pull him out, and I'm like, he's dead. We got to move on and get somebody else. I remember the guy was like, we got to get him out. We got to get him out. And I go, we're going to get him out, but we got to get the guys that are alive out first. This guy is not alive. That's just coldness of war. I mean, all those guys got pulled out, but, you just have to do it the way you got to do it.
When the dust cleared, 5 U.S. soldiers were dead and about 20, including Graves, were wounded. To put the attack in perspective, it had been less than 2 weeks since Iraq took its first post-war shot at self-governance. As the attack came to an end, though, Graves wanted to stay on, shrugging off what he thought was just a knock in the head. But standing there wearing 2 left boots with a broken rifle hanging off of his bare shoulder, he didn't make much of a case for being completely fine. He got packed off with the rest of the injured. I want to talk to you about Care Of. Care Of is a monthly subscription vitamin service that delivers completely personalized vitamin and supplement packs right to your door. It works like this. Go to takecareof.com and take the online quiz. They'll ask you about your diet, health goals, and lifestyle choices, and it takes only 5 minutes to find out your personal, scientifically backed vitamin and supplement recommendations. When I took mine, they recommended a regimen aimed at helping improve my sleep habits. And it's the habit part of this that's really intriguing. I'm getting older and making more of an effort this year to take my health more seriously, which includes thinking a little bit more about what I eat and developing better habits. Care Of has become a significant part of that. Once they suggest supplements, they'll send you a 30-day supply in individual serving packets. Each day I have one with my name on it and an inspirational quote or a piece of trivia or daily challenge. For example, yesterday the packet suggested that I send a text to someone using an emoji I never had before. Today I learned that everyone has a unique tongue print. But for me, what it really is a second of mindfulness, taking a moment to think about something I might not have while I'm trying to improve my health. Plus, you can track your progress with the Care Of app that helps remind you to take your supplements and tracks your progress. If you've been thinking of starting a new health plan or changing up your routine, now is a great time to do it. Take advantage of this month's special New Year's offer. For 50% off your first month of personalized Care Of vitamins, go to takecareof.com and enter This Is War 50. That's takecareof.com and enter This Is War 50. Good habits can be hard to build. Care Of can help keep you mindful of your health. Go to takecareof.com and enter This Is War 50. The battle had ended, but there was still work to be done. Although he could not stay and help with the rest of the cleanup effort or the armed response, Graves found a way to make himself useful on the way to the hospital.
Sergeant Whitty is in shock. He's having like these fits where he's laying there and he's breathing funny, and then he'll just all of a sudden go, "Huh!" And he like would sit up, and I'm trying to hold him down. We're trying to drive to the main base. And I remember there was an oxygen bottle like at the top of the bunk. So he's like sitting up. I got my arm across his chest. And as he sits up, I'm like pushing him back down. And every time I push him back down, his head is hitting this oxygen bottle. So it's like he'd come up and I'd push him down and he'd go ding. And then I'd push him back up. He'd come up again and I'd push him down. So it was almost like comical. And basically Converse and Sanders, I was with them, and Sanders had taken a bunch of shrapnel and stuff. He was all scratched up and cut up, and I think his head might have been cracked open. Converse, the first guy I pulled out, he had a pneumothorax. He had a collapsed lung, and, you know, they all got patched up. I remember I got there and they were in like beds when I walked into the tent or whatever it was that they were all set up in. And I just pulled up a chair in between them and sat there. And I was there for a while and they were like, have you been checked out yet? I'm like, no, but I'm fine. And they came and looked and they said, well, your head's cracked open. And cleaned it up while I was sitting there and put a couple of staples in. Actually, it was kind of nice because we were there and the nurses were like asking if we need anything. I was like, man, you guys, I'd love to be able to tell them. I know this is in the news, you know, my parents don't hardly sleep as it is because we're here. And I was able to email my dad and just say, look, I can't say much. I was in what happened, but I'm fine. You know, when I can, I'll call you, but this is all I can say for now. And, you know, that just made me feel good.
Graves had deployed with his brother Joe, but the two were stationed separately. The commander got word to Joe that his brother had made it okay. Still, there was this overriding concern about the survivors of the attack. This wasn't a battlefield incident, really, or an errant mortar. The guys who were supposed to be guarding the gate while they slept failed. The police they were working to support and train turned on them again and again. It was a kind of environment where you should be a little anxious.
They made all of us, you know, a little while after that, talk to a couple of, you know, psych people. They came in and because we went through a traumatic experience or whatever. They talked to us as a group and as individuals. And when we were talking, they were asking us some questions. And I was like, you know, I appreciate everything you're doing. You're just trying to make sure that we're all right or whatever. But these guys that right here, this is how I'm all right. This is who's going to get me through. I mean, you know, they become your brothers. You know, we don't talk all the time still, but with social media and stuff this day, you can kind of keep an eye on what guys are doing. You know, they post some pictures or whatever. You know, there's a lot of guys that I went to war with that have issues, and man, I understand it. You know, I don't have that problem, but you know, you just want to help them any way you can. You know, war's a hard thing. Not everybody takes it the same way. I think being older going in, I was mentally more prepared for the reality of it. And like my brother, Joe, he has some issues with it, you know, PTSD issues, and he has trouble dealing with it sometimes. So, you know, the reality of it is war's a horrible thing.
One thing that they did learn from the attack was that the Iraqi government was losing even the pretense of control in Samarra. The insurgency had complete control of the streets and were so well dug in that they were able to launch coordinated attacks against American and Iraqi forces outside the city. By September, it was clear the city had to be retaken.
My squad and our platoon or whatever, we were like the tip of the spear, so we were like the first ones going in, and we were trying to go in silent. We were on the ground with no Bradleys or anything with us. I remember we were going down this road, and it came to like a T intersection, and on the end of the road, it was like storefronts that we were coming up on. We were taking fire from the top of the building across the street. So we're laying down fire. My first sergeant is there, and he's like, come on with me. We're going to go across the road, and I'm going to throw a grenade on the roof. I'm like, all right, let's go. So I literally come off of my street, come around the building, and take one step out into the street, and an RPG comes flying down the street and literally bounces a couple of feet in front of me and skips down the road. It's supposed to explode on contact. It skipped down the road about 50 yards and then blew up. I remember we turned right back around, and my first sergeant goes, I think I can throw it from here. And he threw it from there, threw it on the roof, and the firing stopped. It went on for like 2 days. I mean, we had spots where we stopped and, kind of found a sideline. And I mean, it got pretty crazy, but that's the one thing I remember about that. We did a ton of house clearing for like 2 days straight, and we took the city back over. And then from then on, there was always a presence in the city again so that wouldn't happen again, at least while I was there.
Having entered the service so much older than most of the others, Graves was a little bit better able to put things into perspective for himself. At least that was probably part of his success. The other part of it, though, was that because he had spent so much time, nearly a decade, working before joining the Army, he had a completely different sense of what was important. Graves didn't have anything to prove except to himself. Wanting to be a good soldier drove all of his decision-making, but focusing on achieving excellence by competing against himself was part of his personality long before he joined the Army.
I was accepted in as a leader pretty quickly. No matter what it was, I wanted to be the best at whatever I did. I was a soccer player. I wanted to be the best soccer player. I ran track. I was state champion in the mile. I wanted to be the best at that. Sometimes my priorities might have been off. I should have tried to be the best student, but at 18 or whatever, you don't realize that your parents are right, how damn important that is, But, as a soldier, I wanted to be the best soldier that I could. So, I just tried hard, and I'm so easygoing. So even as a sergeant, I was a little different. My leadership style was a little different, and I was more, most of them, in the Army, everybody calls you by sergeant or by your last name. And everybody called me Sammy. Our company commander would do it. And, that's how I was known, just because I was well known. I try to be a likable person and be trustworthy and hardworking and do things the right way. And being older, having that competitive and wanting to be a leader type thing, it worked well in the military. We just had a really good unit. And, a lot of guys come back with problems and stuff. I think that I'm able to live a great life. I have a great family, great kids, great job. Do I think about it sometimes? Absolutely. But, a lot of that's because we brought everybody back with us alive. Did guys get injured? Yeah, a lot of us. But it's a lot easier to sleep at night when all your friends made it back.
If he had any regrets after that first tour, it only might have been that he hadn't enlisted earlier. Graves had a taste for the Army, for the camaraderie and the order and the meritocracy. Whether he would have had a similar career if he enlisted at 18 is anybody's guess, but at 30, choosing to be a professional soldier is a way tougher call to make.
When I got in, I was open-minded. I was like, either way, it's going to be good for me. I said, either I do my 4 years, I get out and I have money for school, and all my bills are paid off. Maybe I put some money away, or I stay in for 20 and make a career out of it. Going to war, man, it is hard on your body. Just being an infantryman in general is hard on your body. So I was like, I can get out now at 31, and that's still a decent age to go back to school or start a career, start a family, whatever. And as a infantryman, in your head, you can't go to another job. You can't be the alpha, the frontline guy, and then become the support guy in the back. And I just couldn't see doing it to 47. So I didn't want to end up serving until I was 40 and then get out at 40 with no retirement and then try and start a career or a family or whatever. How beat up my body was already, I was like, I think it's probably best. Because I loved the job. I loved doing it. But I also knew if I stayed in that I was probably going to be deploying every other year at least. So it just, for my situation, I just felt like getting out.
And so that's what he did. He and one of his buddies opened a bar for a while, but as he said, being the only sober person around a bunch of drunks was no fun. Plus, his buddy decided to re-up and head back to war, so they sold the place. Graves already had an immense amount of luck on his tour, so it was a little surprising that he had some left.
I closed the bar with no clue with what I was going to do. And I just lucked into out fishing with a buddy one day. We picked up his wife on the boat. She started asking me what I was going to do. And she was the office manager for an environmental consulting group. She said, man, you'd be perfect for what we do. So, man, I fell in love with it. And I've been doing it 10 years now. And I went back to school for it. I got 4 classes left to finish. I take them online. Work 50 hours a week. I got a 2 and a 3-year-old and a wife. I work on the road and try and do as much schoolwork on the road at night so I can spend time with my family when I get home on the weekends. And I love it. I got a great job, make good money. My family can get everything they want because of it. And I just been lucky.
They say luck is when preparation meets opportunity, and there's probably something to that, but it certainly isn't all of it. Luck has to do at least a little bit with being recognized, knowing that sometimes you get breaks and favors you didn't deserve, and sometimes you don't get the ones you think you did. Most important, it's the attitude of not counting on luck that seems to bring it. Graves both made his own luck and benefited from chance without trying, but neither of those changed the way he approached being a soldier. When you see the effort, putting in the work as the end of what you're doing, luck is secondary, and whether it comes or not, you can sleep knowing that your work stands on its own, one way or another. Next time on This Is War.
When the grenade was called, he stayed right there, right by my side, at the cost of his own life.
Are you a combat veteran, or do you know one with a story to tell? Reach out to us at stories@thisiswar.com with your dates and branch of service and a brief description of the experience that you'd like to share. If you like the show, you can help support us by visiting our sponsors or by leaving us a 5-star review wherever you're listening right now. This Is War was written by me, Anthony Russo, and produced by Incongruity Media. Executive producer Hernan Lopez for Wondery.